I think one of the first signs that really indicated to me that Trump was going to win the presidency was all the way back when Top Gun Maverick came out. This was an interesting film because at the time we were just being given a bunch of just really bullshit liberal slop. And I say that as someone who isn't super conservative either, but it was very clear that every time you went to the movie theater, there was some sort of political agenda being shoved down your throat that was more important to the producers, to the creators of the film, than the actual story, than the actual characters. And Top Gun Maverick came along and basically flipped that paradigm on its head and did so in a way that signaled to the rest of Hollywood, like, holy shit, if we make feel-good movies that make us feel awesome to be Americans, we can make a lot of money. Like that was a big takeaway from that movie, and the fact that it did as well as it did commercially, it was to me at the time a really big indication that the country was moving back in the direction of the red wave that we just saw from the election the other day. Now, on top of this, I think another big indicator to me that things were moving in the direction of conservatism, populism, and Trump is the rise of guys like Shane Gillis, Tony Hinchcliffe, Tim Dillon, all of these guys, all of these kind of edgy comedians starting to get really, really popular and really famous from sort of catering to a more conservative audience. And I don't say that as a bad thing. It's just, I think when you look at the demographics of the people who follow them, who consume their content, it's probably more in the camp of people who are conservative. And as the saying goes, politics always runs downstream from culture. And if culture is going in the direction of making fun of retarded people, it's usually a pretty good indication that politics is going to catch up in a few years. And that's where the collective psyche of America is headed. Now, the third thing that really indicated to me that the tide was changing, and this one might seem a little bit counterintuitive, was the decrease in popularity of YouTubers like, the comment section with Brett Cooper, Fresh and Fit, the Whatever podcast, all of these sort of like angry red pill podcasts. And the reason I say this, their decline really signaled this to me, because when you feel like your political side is in power, you don't really need to gravitate to content creators who are on the cusps of society saying like what the big man doesn't want you to know. Like at this point, most of what Fresh and Fit or any of these podcasts would probably have to say are being said out in the open at this point. And as a result, consuming Fresh and Fit, consuming the Whatever podcast just doesn't feel as edgy. It's not as entertaining as it once was. The red pill in general isn't as entertaining as it once was. I think this is also a big reason for the decrease in popularity of Andrew Tate and the reason he's had to, succumb to doing like bullshit crypto rug pulls. It's because that faucet has dried up substantially. Now, I think people like Ben Shapiro in like the solidly conservative space, there's always going to be a place for that type of content creator because he serves a political purpose. Politics is something that's always part of America, that people are always looking towards, but that built up a rage that the red pill thrived on, that it felt like it had to kind of hide away from the world because speaking in that way in mixed company out in the public, you just couldn't do it. As a result of this election and everything leading up to it, you can say some pretty crazy shit out in public, and as a result, we don't need to flock to these like angry red pill podcasts in order to articulate what it is that we have in our mind. We can just say it in public, for better and for worse. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but it is going in the direction of just being able to speak your mind openly, and I think that in and of itself is probably for the best, rather than people inside of our country walking around feeling like they can't say what's on their mind. I would even say that to liberals. I think liberals should be able to spout their craziness online. If they were in a position where they were going to get fired from their job for having certain political views, I would consider that to be a really negative thing. So again, whether or not I agree with the red pill, whether or not I agree with a lot of the things being said in public, I think everyone's ability to say things in public without a real possibility of losing their job is probably a positive thing. Now, the fourth thing that really indicated this to me was Star Wars. The backlash to every single Star Wars production that's come out over the last few years, which, to be fair, have been terrible and have been totally like wokeified. The backlash to all of these projects, again, was a really strong indication to me that the country was moving in the direction of conservative populism, because everyone loves Star Wars, regardless of whether you're conservative or liberal. And the fact that this many people showed up every time there was a new Star Wars project to shit on it, and they were willing to do it publicly, it was an indication to me that everything was kind of moving in that direction. Because when you're dealing with an intellectual property that is just beloved by millions, billions, regardless of political affiliation, and you have one side, the liberal side in this case, like popping up and just coping so hard, saying, oh, like this is only being shut down by racists and like angry like incels or whatever, and then the people on the conservative side saying like, no, this is just bad art. Like this is not compelling. It's hogwash. It's dog shit. Stop trying to shove it down our throats. Like, give us a real story. Like, it was very clear that things were moving in that direction, because again, like politics flows downstream from culture, and if culture is barking that loudly that something isn't working in something as popular and as universally beloved as Star Wars, then things are really moving in the culture if there's something wrong with Star Wars. And now, which then brings us to the fifth thing that really indicated to me that Trump was going to win. I think back in probably, I'd say December, maybe February of this last year, I started feeling a change inside of my own audience. It was the type of thing where my audience started digging in their heels with a lot of conservative beliefs, and that's fine. I mean, it's not a criticism, but there was a tide change in the types of comments that people were willing to put out in public. There was a different vibe in terms of the way people argued in the comments, and it's funny when you're out in public and you do a little bit of people watching. If you've ever seen people get into a fight, I don't mean a fist fight, but a verbal fight, you can always tell within the first couple of words exchanged who is in control. You can feel it. It's in the air. It's palpable. And that has a lot to do with tone of voice, that has to do with word choice, that has to do with general energy. Like, it has to do with all of it. And I think in the digital sphere, once again, from a content creator's point of view, someone who's just like exposed to thousands upon thousands of comments every single day, you get a sense of who really believes that they're in charge, who believes more in their side of things than the other side. And I think, again, back in February, I really started feeling this tide change where people were like, no, fuck this. I'm done living this way. I hate this. It's time for a change. And I felt that. And I think that was a big reason why I created so much content that was critical of conservatives this year. I think the thing that's worth saying is I never create a piece of content in order to simply stir shit up. Most of the time, and in fact, not even most of the time, all of the time, when I create a video, it's because it's something that's either genuinely on my mind or something that I genuinely think on a fundamental level. It's a bit of both, I would say. It's never, like, everything that I post is never something that's believed on a fundamental level. But it's at least on my mind. I'm at least trying to entertain it, trying to wrestle with it. And the thing that I saw happening going into this election is, again, because conservatives in my comment section were speaking with such fervor, such vigor, and such boldness, I wanted to create content that was critical of conservatism and critical of populism, not because I all of a sudden became some like liberal blue-pilled cuck, but because when a certain side of society starts to feel like they have power and has a lot of emotion, and a lot of anger is behind that power and emotion, it's usually a good time to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and take a breath. Because if you go too far with that political fervor, you end up getting into some pretty scary territory. It's not a good thing for emotions and passion to make its way into politics. It's okay for a small period of time, but if that passion lasts for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it leads to some pretty wild places. And I think you can see this on both sides of the political spectrum, whether you're dealing with really conservative dictatorships in Italy, or whether you're dealing with leftist politics in China in the mid-20th century during the Cultural Revolution and the Great Leap Forward. it can play out on both sides, but this political fervor, this political passion, it can be dangerous. And I think the thing that I would say now, and the reason I make this video now, is because at this point we're past the election. And that passion, that political fervor, has served its purpose. It has gotten the candidate that you wanted to get elected into office, which is good. Congratulations. It's really a job well done. I'm not being sarcastic, like, bravo. But the thing that I guess I would encourage here is to make sure that now that your objective has become complete, I think it would be to your benefit to take a step back, to take a couple of weeks to just breathe, to go outside, touch grass. I guess in this case, it's probably getting into the territory of touching snow, depending on where you are in the country. But just taking time to really kind of focus in on your own life, to focus in on the things that you care about, to, you know, develop the skills that you've wanted to develop, to maybe break off the relationships that you've needed to break off that have sort of been plaguing you for a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, and just haven't really been serving you. And perhaps to develop the discipline that you know you need in order to make all of those things that I just mentioned a reality. Because if you're someone who struggles with discipline, the link in the description of this video will actually do a really great job of telling you for free all of the reasons why you've never been able to develop self-discipline up until this point and what to do about it moving forward. And having that type of skill set in your back pocket, especially in the context of our politics in the country sort of starting to cool down, giving you a little bit of breathing room so that you can move forward and focus on the things that actually matter in the world, that's the type of thing that really benefits your life in a real way, that doesn't involve you watching angry red pill podcasts, endlessly watching anything political that you see on X, and also like watching me. Like a big part of my mission, I think, at this point is getting people to stop watching content online because it's so polarizing, because that's the way the algorithm works. It is set up in such a way to provoke the deepest emotional response from you that it possibly can, because it knows that that is how it can keep you addicted to the platform so that they can make more money, which in my head means that you should either get off social media altogether, or at the very least you should start curating your own social media feed by going through, and every time something comes up that makes you mad, that, like, let's say you're on X and you're coming across videos of black people jumping white guys, or people getting shot, or people getting hurt, or something really toxic politically, like, why not just click the three dots and say, not interested in this post, show me less from this creator? Why not do that? And then you try and consume as much content as you can about things that make your life better, that make your life brighter, that make you smile. Like, that to me is the opportunity that's in front of us, that allows us to focus on things that will move us into the next decade in a way that's really powerful in our own personal lives, but even in the context of our communities and our country as well. That, to me, is what this cooling down of the political climate that we have right now really affords us. So I guess what I'm saying is, why not take advantage of it? Now, there is a possibility that even though you're cooling down, someone on the other side of the political aisle might really not be cooling down, and they're still screaming in society. If you want to know how to deal with that type of person and to really understand their psychology so that you can continue having peace of mind yourself, then check out this video right here.